Everyone. So this today the topic was about systems of oppression, and the question asks, or at least the main question is of us thinking about how systems of oppression manifest at OSU, and how do we see our roles dismantling these systems. So one thing that I found very interesting from the video, or a couple of things that I picked up from the video, were that it everything that I know, but it was said in words, so it felt different. And when it was said in words, it actually got to you, or like you felt it more. And so when I read the part, like who, when or not read, but when I heard the part where the dean says, who don't fit into the prescribed categories are hard to read and are usually the ones which face oppression, face surveillance, criminalization, and violence. And this is very interesting because being a person of color, I can relate to this a lot, and just having those, or at least the one time that I came in through the U.S. airport, which was my first time over here, I had a random check on my dad who was walking in, and and that really stood out to me because he wasn't one of those common categories, not necessarily prescribed, but one of those common categories that they face every day in their traveling. But he was one of the uncommon ones, and so he was faced with oppression and the surveillance. Um, and and another thing that stood out to me was that we have been told in the video that was said, that we have been told that racism is over because of the civil rights, but I don't. That's completely not true. Because even though that we say that civil rights have passed and that there are equal opportunities to vote, that the people are still not treating everybody equally, and or with justice or proper, like justifying their actions. Like they're not proper actions on those occasions, and so it's interesting that everybody's like, yeah, the racism is over because the civil rights movement and the Civil Rights Voting Act, but it's not really true because of the things that's happening right now. Um, Racism doesn't have to be, um, or well, racism it's it's still out there, and just because of the recent um, outbreak of Donald Trump and him using the hatred against Muslims to make his campaign work and get his followers, it's brought back racism. And the people who say, yeah, racism is not there, are those people who like follow him and are like the ignorant ones, which say, yeah, the laws are there. So, but what if the laws aren't there, and you're not acting on it? So, what's the point of the laws? Um, Also, another thing that I found that related to me, well, and in the video was and they were talking about transgender and people who don't fall in the binary and for gender, and so this is a little hard for me to say, but for my personal belief, I don't have a problem with say transgender or being gay or being a lesbian. But in our religion, in Islam, it is prohibited in a way. And so, being from the Ittihad Cultural Center and knowing that there are people who have that belief and who think that a it is not an option, it's a little difficult for me to explain to them. But through this, it's becoming easier to tell them that, hey, I know that this is a little hard for you to believe, but because in Islam that it calls for not not being homosexual, and it's a little hard to explain to them and tell them that, hey, you know, some people are not don't fall into the binary that exists, and we just have to accept that because it's their choice. We can tell them that in our religion that this is not allowed, but that we don't have to enforce that they have to believe that we are right, and or not we, but the religion is right. And so we can just inform them and tell them that, hey, this is what the views of Islam is, and just leave it up to them for to make the decision, and that we shouldn't judge the person on if they do fall out of the binary or even inside the binary, and we should just go with it and like not try to ruin the relationship that we had or connection that we had with that person. And so this, I feel, is a little challenging, but with time and experience, I feel like with me being the leadership liaison and my other leadership liaison, we could work this out and explain to people who do not understand um, this issue in our community. So yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you.